Dang it.
Some of us can.
Hey guys.
Do selfie monkeys.
No, I need it back, Kenny.
I know. Make it put on and corrected. Say hi to everybody.
I did.
Hi everybody. I think it has to be sideways.
We're just having technical difficulties. What would a live show be like without technical difficulties? So, hello everyone. Let's see how this goes. You can see my ironing board. I think that's a first.
It's alright, we need to wait for people to get in anyway.
So John's gonna try and do my reading for me. Hi, little ugly duckling, and everybody else. Ironing board, front and center.
Okay. And I will be slightly to the left.
Oh my gosh, I do not remember which one I was working with today.
Where's my YouTube?
All right.
Where's my volume?
Hey guys.
Go to volume.
So, for those of you who were on yesterday when we went and saw the potential Oklahoma property, did you see the news report that there's 38 tornado touchdowns that happened this last week? That's what I want to hear when we're thinking about buying a property that does not have a tornado shelter.
In Tornado Alley.
In Tornado Alley. Do you know how much it costs to get a tornado shelter? A lot. It might be wise if we were to get one, but there's a lot of people that I know. There's a lot of people that I know that live here that are preppers that do not have their own tornado shelter, which I guess I would be one of those people, but if I guess if I lived here for a long time, like in Idaho, you need to have a wood burning stove. If you're gonna live in Idaho, have one. Because you can harvest your own life-saving heat if you have to. Whereas here, I guess my thought is have a tornado shelter.
Hey, homesteading from the Pioneer Way says hi from Mississippi. So he would have been right in the middle of all that. How bad was it over there?
There's Stony Creek. So what, anybody that is in Tornado Alley as we are, what are your thoughts on tornado shelters? Is it essential that you have one before you move in? Or is the likelihood of you being caught, having your home caught in the middle of a tornado, is it not very likely? Can't remember which way this thing goes.
Yeah. So Up in the House Records TV says
Okay, so
she's in Oklahoma.
Okay.
Daniel Stevens says just moved to Ohio. That still qualifies as Tornado Alley, just saying. You don't get as many.
See, that's my travel wheel. I took it traveling for the first time on, was it
Friday.
Saturday? Was it Friday? Friday night? And I didn't put it in the back of the car the right way, and it ended up like falling all over the car. But because it was in its own case, nothing happened to it. But I don't take very good care of my equipment at times, I'm afraid.
Little Ugly Duckling says hi from Australia. And
Hello
there
from Australia.
Are prefab ones that can be delivered and installed quicker and cheaper. Yes, but
Isn't it a
not-
prefab that we have been
yeah, we've
looking
looked
at?
at a lot of prefabs, and they're nice, thick concrete, but they are
They're about
small.
And they're about $5,000.
And so for said $5,000, I'm hoping to be able to use something a little more useful and more prepper-esque than just a tiny little bench to go sit on for 20 minutes. It's got to have more uses, I think, for Homestead.
But if you guys have seen what Doug and Stacy, Off Grid with Doug and Stacy are doing over on their channel, they dug a big root cellar type underground container thing, and they're having some difficulties with it. It is a real feat, especially in areas that get a lot of water. Being able to keep the water out of the shelter is a big deal. For my dad, what he did is he actually built a hill up. Our property was a cow pasture, a 12-acre cow pasture that was my childhood homestead. What my dad did was that he built a hill in the back of the property that was like a how tall was it? 5 feet, 6 feet? Was it more than that?
It's a 5-foot berm.
5 foot.
But he also sunk the rest of the shelter.
Yes, so he built a hill up, and then when he put the root cellar in, it was a very large root cellar that held our water reservoir, our emergency drinking water. I think it was a 500-gallon
That was huge.
milk tank that he used as the water reservoir. And then he platformed on top of that so that you could use that space as a root cellar and have extra space. It was always too big for us as a root cellar, though. It was huge. And Doug and Stacy are having issues with theirs as far as the workability of it for them and being able to finish it without having water in it. In Idaho, we don't have as much water as you have here. And so to build your own root cellar, you come needing an engineer. And at least from what I've seen, you really have to do some special work in order to put a basement in here because there is so much water.
Yeah, that's a high water table, like not even that many feet under the ground. Glenn Okla, sounds like Oklahoma, says, I've never had a shelter, but it would be great to afford one. So I guess
And that's what I've heard is
one.
a lot of people don't seem to really worry about it around here. I know some people who consider themselves very prepared, very intense preppers that don't have one. And so I don't know which side to err on. I think it would be such a good idea to have one, and yet they're expensive.
Stony Creek Heritage Farm says the best barbecue grilling happens during a storm. Says we don't have a shelter, but there is an area under the stairs if we had to.
So do you use like a crawl space? Is that where you go? Because the house we're looking at has a solid foundation brick foundation crawl space. So would you go into the crawl space?
Let's see. BTV says the tornado zone is changing with climate change. I have noticed that. I was just trying to tell Julie just before she went live that I was reading something about this, that most of the tornadoes are shifting away from the Midwest now down to the Southeast. Like year over year, they're getting further into that direction. So, could be climate change. Could be that they're too prepared down here now, so they need to shift these.
The school in that area does have a storm shelter, which makes me feel a little happier. It looks like a big monstrosity type of thing, but it's right next to the school, so that gives me a little relief. If Paige in particular decided that she wanted to go to school, then that just kind of makes me a little happier about that situation.
Doug and Stacy says, did somebody say root cellar?
Yes, I think I mentioned it several times that Doug and Stacy have a root cellar right now, and that it's a good project, and it's looking like it has been a work of love and sometimes desperation with some of the problems that have come up with it. Honey, make sure not to turn because you'll turn right into the spinning wheel.
Homesteading the Pioneer Way says she's digging a shelter/cellar in the side of a hill right now. Maybe not right now, but they took a break to watch YouTube.
Gotcha.
To watch our show. Tambo says I have tons of space in my basement. Just started canning last year. Baby steps to homesteading and gardening.
Very true. And I wouldn't worry about having a root cellar if it wasn't for the worry of needing a storm shelter here. We always just used our basement. We kept it unheated winter and summer, and it worked just fine, really, really well as a root cellar for us back in Idaho.
My Jumbo Turnix Quail Adventure says we had a few touchdowns in Alabama. I don't live in that state. Hope things are good for you. Also, you're so lucky to have a wood stove. I really wanted to get one for a while.
We have several right now, actually. The most recent one that we have used was the rocket stove that the Honeydew Carpenter made. We're using version 2.0 right now in the tiny house. But we also have the Elmira that we use to heat the bigger home that we have in Idaho. And then we had a wood burning stove in the basement of that house when we bought it. But that didn't work well for us. It really does matter where you put your wood burning stove, because our first year in that house, we went through like 9 cord of wood, and everything in the basement that we were using as a root cellar sprouted because it would be 90 degrees downstairs and 70 degrees upstairs, and the stove was not efficient. It was just a big monster. the second year we were there, that was the year that we found the Elmira for just a screaming deal. We got it for so cheap, and it was brand new. And when we put it in, we went through like 2.5, 3 cords of wood a year, and that's with burning from September until May, the end of May, and that's how much wood we went through. So yeah, it matters what kind of stove you have, and it also matters where you put it in your house.
Yep, Glenn Oakley nailed it. A small interior room if you don't have a shelter.
Okay.
So as many walls as close together as you can seems to fare better should they get hit. Let's see. Ecocentric Homestead says yes, it seems that the hurricanes are shifting as well. Yeah, and it's hard to deny. Whichever side of the global climate change, man-made or not man-made or doesn't happen you are, something is changing, I'll say that.
Well, but weather goes in cycles too.
Yes.
I mean, you have your 100-year storms, you have your 10-year storms, and everybody in every area gets it. Back in Idaho, every 10 years, we have a storm where up in the mountains you've got 13 feet of snow. You can't see out the attic window in the big fancy cabins. And it happens about every 10 years, and then that year we have a flood. And so it's cyclic, and as you know, I think one of the best things you can do as a gardener is keep a journal. And by keeping a journal, your memory can sometimes be hazy about when things happen. And for me, to go back and read my gardening journal is a revelation, being like, oh, so it's been this many years that we've had really heavy rain in the spring. And I think a lot of times when we're not gardening and we're not homesteading, I think in general, people have a tendency to be not as aware of the weather. But if you're a homesteader, I think that you're hyper aware of the weather, but without writing it down and keeping track of what it's doing, it's really hard to remember year to year what's really happening.
Catherine says, I want a root cellar, but not for a storm shelter. Yes.
That's right, because you guys don't have a basement out there, do you? Yeah, I think if you don't have a basement, it's really nice to have a root cellar. When the root cellar that my parents had was the first thing that they built in their house, and they also put blast doors on it for like if we needed it for like the Cold War or something. It was very interesting, and they had connecting spaces from, instead of having to walk to the root cellar, it was actually connected by a corridor. It was connected to the basement of the house, so you could get to it from the basement rather than having to go outside. And it was probably about 12 by 25. Is that what you remember, babe?
Yeah,
about 12 by 25.
Yeah.
And on the far back, they had the 500-gallon milk tank that was sunk. And then Dad had built a wooden platform that would fit over the top of that so that you could use it as living space if you ever did have to be in there for an extended period of time. But I remember that it was dark and it was gloomy. And as a child, I hated going downstairs to get potatoes because the lighting wasn't very good. And it seemed like that was where all the spiders and all the mice in the world went. And so it was used. We did use it every year. But I think it was really wise in the olden days that people would go down and they would whitewash things, and they would have really nice solid shelves built, and then they would whitewash them. Because I think if you can see better down there, and if once a year, seasonally you go down there and you re-whitewash things and you scrub things and you kind of clean out all the cobwebs, you have a better chance of using it. But I think if it's a musty, dusty, dark place, especially for children, they don't want to be down there. And if you don't use it, then you just wasted all that money. And we did. We stored our potatoes down there, and we did store a lot of potatoes. We stored about 1 ton of potatoes down there every year. We went through a lot of them, and we just went and purchased them from the farmer. And when they were digging them, we bought enough of them that we would go and put the little trailer on the back of the car underneath the chute as they were shooting down out of the harvester. And then we would bring them home and we would put them into crates. And then we would take all the crates down into the root cellar, and they'd stay good a long time. But I am super excited if we get this house that we went and showed you guys yesterday. I'm excited to whitewash the barn. I want to put up wood and I want to whitewash it so that you can see in there really well, so that it's an appealing place and not, dark corners where, it's hard to get things clean. Even in a barn, it's important to have it be a delightful place that feels safe and feels open and airy and easy to maintain.
Willow Creek was in for a second. Gotta go.
Hey, Willow Creek.
Bye, Willow Creek. Let's see. Where was it? That was a really good comment. Oh well. Ecocentric Homestead says, in hilly country, root cellars are in the side of a hill. I have one in the side of a hill, but I also have a cold room in the basement. A couple days ago, I had 23 Celsius in the basement. That's warm. In the cold room, it was 4 degrees Celsius. So, like 40 Fahrenheit.
So the one in the basement was colder?
Well, the cold room, so that was, I think, in the hill, under the basement.
Oh, gotcha.
Tambo's offering to come work for us this summer. Well, are you and Catherine? For
Cool.
free.
That'd be awesome.
You
We
have,
can always
you
use
have
free
your
labor.
own dedicated woofer.
Right?
Loving the wood heat.
If you're serious about that, you should just contact us at dirtpatcheaven@gmail.com. I don't know, Catherine might actually need the help. Right now, I don't know, because we don't know if we'll actually have this house or not. We don't know.
LEDs, yes. So we're talking about outfitting the bunker. Rose of Sharon Homestead. Been logging with the weather for over 10 years. My CSA seed sow days are behind me. 4 weeks the last 3 years, and we lost 1 whole month of harvest.
Wow.
Happy I have a greenhouse.
Yeah, and I felt that way on our homestead. Even with hotbeds, we couldn't grow in the winter and early spring months, even with hotbeds, because it just wasn't retaining enough of the heat. Enough heat wasn't being collected during the day to give them a good push. And so until we did put in a greenhouse, it wasn't really possible to have a really big production garden that was producing by the beginning of April. It just, even here, I don't think you can do it effectively with new plants growing. It's one thing to preserve plants and keep harvesting them because they're not in an active growth state, but when you're starting out new seedlings, you really need to be able to baby them and consistently take care of them. We have been able to do it here in the spring in just a hotbed, but back home in Idaho, we needed a greenhouse over the top of the hotbed too. And so that would be the difference that I found between trying to garden early in the year in Idaho versus here, is that here, a hotbed with a little bit of cover over it will do. Back in Idaho, you want a hotbed and then you want a greenhouse over the top of it.
Okay, just refresh for people, maybe like William, who was asking somebody, where do you live at?
So currently we're in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Our main homestead is back in Idaho, in southeast Idaho, and currently we are looking for a homestead here in the Tulsa area. And we are not sure if we're going to find one that we actually go through on, but we are actively looking.
The Awesome Homestead is asking, Dirtpatcheaven Patch, will you be at Baker's Creek this year?
No, I don't travel well. I struggle.
She doesn't fit in most overhead compartments.
I do not. Last year I traveled and I was actually on the road most of the summer. We went to Baker's Creek in Missouri. We went to Baker's Creek in California. At the beginning of the year, we went to Mississippi for the
Deep South Homestead.
Deep South Homestead Convention.
Mm-hmm.
That was in, I think, March. And then we did filming in Hawaii. And then where else did we go? Is that it? Oh, and then we went back and forth to Idaho twice. So
And saw Catherine in New Mexico.
yeah, we went.
Yeah.
So went down to New Mexico and then up
So
to Idaho.
she logged some miles.
I traveled so much last year, and I just wanted to see what it would do to go to these and to see if it was really worth it. And in the end, it just took a really heavy toll on my health. And so now, if John isn't going with me to something, I don't go. And if I'm already tired, if it's been kind of stressful in our normal life, then I don't go to anything anymore.
So what they should really be asking is, John, are you going to Baker's Creek?
Yeah, that's what you have to ask. If John goes to Baker's Creek, then I would go to Baker's Creek.
Funny. Okay. Garvin Gardens is asking, is whitewash a homemade paint?
Yes, you use hydrated lime and I think salt and water, I think is what it's made out of. Don't quote me on that. But yes, it is.
I should type that in quote. Don't put me on that.
You should do that, honey. But that's what it is. Just look it up, whitewash recipe, and it is something that needs to be on the inside of a building. It doesn't, it doesn't have to be. You can reapply it every year. They used to use whitewash on like fences and things like that too. But it's not a long-lasting paint. It will wash off. But if you use it inside a chicken coop or inside the barn, it just brightens things up. It kind of helps you notice what's going on in that space a little better than if you have dark corners, and it actually looks really nice. So yeah, it costs very little to make an awful lot of paint with that, and it's non-toxic. The only time that you need to worry about it is wear a mask when you're taking the powder and putting it in, so that you're not getting the lime, the hydrated lime, actually in your lungs. You don't want to do that.
That would hurt. Northern Roots says, have starts planted in window containers. Trick is keeping the 2-year-old fingers away from it.
Yeah, that
Already
is a
had to
trick.
redo of the tomato planters. Yes.
Well, and I don't think I can show you now, but I have the most weird assorted array of plants right now. The nice thing is that it really brightens up your house to have all those plants. The bad thing is that they grow, and as they grow they get bigger and you're still having to start new seeds because you're trying to have everything ready and at the right size when it's time to get everything planted for real. But it takes over your kitchen or your window or your lights, and by the time you're ready to plant, it's kind of like, what's the House of Horrors with the plant that tries to eat people?
The Venetian what?
There was a horror.
Little Shop of Horrors?
Little Shop of Horrors. It's like the Little Shop of Horrors where you walk in the house and you're like, beware of the plants.
Let's see. Fenster Farm says, hey, Julianne.
Hey, how are you? If you want to see amazing greenhouses, go check out his channel, Fenster Farm.
Tambo says at Dirtpatcheaven, where is your dream place to homestead? It's my favorite question.
I don't really have a dream place. I'm happy with the dirt as long as I can stay for a while and my family is comfortable in that space. It's very difficult to homestead if you are trying to move around a lot, because you just feel like you're starting over and starting over. So if you are somebody that has to move a lot, I would say put all your plants in movable containers. I will be experimenting with that a little bit here. I will be making some self-watering containers. That's all my mom gardens in anymore, is self-watering containers made out of Rubbermaids. And that way, if you can have a full-on garden that you pull out into the sunshine every morning and you put up at night. And my mom, that's how she gardens, is with these containers that can be rolled in and rolled out. And she still has a big garden, and she still has a glut of tomatoes and summer squash and stuff like that. So hopefully I can remember that I need to make those, because I'm trying to think what's taken over the most. I have borage and comfrey and parsley that are getting big enough that they're too big for where I have them. And as the weather gets nice, it would be really good to have a bigger tub to put them in that I could just take them out into the sunshine.
Northern Roots Farm says, my dining room is full of milk jugs that are mini greenhouses.
Yeah.
And it's a new daily thing to rotate them to different windows. My hands are getting sore.
Well, and I transplant just about every day, and we do use a lot of milk jugs. We don't have a goat right now, so we're not using mason jars. So all of John's milk jugs that come into the house, I cut them up, I turn them into planting spaces, put some holes in the bottom, and every single day I am switching things, making sure I watered everything, putting something in a bigger container, and but it does become a little bit desperate as you approach that planting date and you have run out of room. Even if you have a pretty good setup, I think it's pretty normal for people who are seed starters to just kind of feel a little desperate at this point in the year.
Dharma D is starting her sweet potato slips.
Oh, that's awesome. I want to start mine. I keep buying sweet potatoes and then we keep eating them.
Yes.
So
I even we were even in the store.
and it was like, are these
"Hey,
for your
honey."
slips? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we're gonna eat them.
Yeah. That's fun.
I think in the end what I'm going to do is go over to the garden center and buy them because there's a limit to how much how-to I want to be doing if we do get this house. I feel like we're kind of, if we get it, so, and then I'm not going back to Idaho for as long as I thought I was going to this spring, then I'm a little bit overwhelmed with trying, if we do end up doing this house, we've got like 2 weeks to get everything boxed up, moved. We would have to have appliances, we would have to have everything like that ready to go in like 2 weeks, and I feel incredibly overwhelmed by that thought. And if we don't, if we end up not buying this house, then at that point I can just kind of put on the brakes a little bit and be gardening in indoor containers so there's not as much of a rush. So it's either hurry up or slow down, but we don't know which that will be here for a few days.
Little Ugly Duckling says, we lost a full crop of tomatoes from the heat and earwigs this year. I was heartbroken that I'll have to purchase from the store to make my sauce this year.
Yeah, that's hard. Can you not go to the seed store and purchase new?
Or maybe they only have Lowe's or Home Depot there.
Oh yeah, if it was Lowe's
Don't
or
get
Home
those.
Depot, I totally wouldn't do those. Not last year. Our first year that we had our greenhouse up, we had, I think I didn't have the seeds that I wanted when I started my peppers or something, so I went to the greenhouse, like the nursery, local nursery, just to grab a couple plants because I wanted to fill in the corners a little bit. There had been 0 aphids in my greenhouse up to that point, but these peppers brought in aphids and they spread through my whole greenhouse. At that point I had been seeding a lot of basil, and so anywhere that there was an outbreak of these aphids that was really bad, I planted basil next to it, and those spots survived. But that was the very last time that I bought plants from the nursery. Every year since
Home
then.
Depot nursery, the chain store.
It wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't?
That
That
one
was
was
just
the
a-
local one.
Ah.
Yeah, I've never bought plants or anything from Home Depot. Our neighbor across the street had, and they had some kind of nasty pest with them too. But I mean, yeah, the best way to just have some security that way is just to start your own plants and to keep them rotated. I mean, I'm constantly seeding things because I don't know, but what that first time I put it in the ground, it's going to die from frost or it's going to have a pest. And so if I always have a replacement plant, then I can kind of guarantee myself at least a little bit of success in the year and at least some lessons learned.
And some plants killed.
Lots of plants killed. There's no question about that, and there's never any lack of killing of plants. But they were happy for their short lives.
Yes.
And it's why I always have so many seeds.
She did say we did well off our black apple.
No,
Blah, blah.
both of you go brush yourselves off outside the
Why can't-
house,
why
not
can't I
inside
talk?
the house.
We-
Brush each other off really good.
We did well off our apple trees this year. I finally got a decent batch of preserved apples and applesauce from my Granny Smith trees.
Oh, congratulations.
So there's successes with the hard times too. You can't say failures because it's all just learning experiences.
It is learning experiences, and it's when you stop planting that nothing happens. We planted blackberry canes 4 years ago, just before we left on our trips, and now this last year we had lots of blackberries in our garden. We had what did we have that didn't produce? Like last year was amazing. Everything produced last year. Some of it for the first time. I'm trying to think if anything didn't produce.
The grapes were nice and
Yeah, the grapes were
thick
good.
and full. And
Yeah, everything produced
peaches
last
came
year.
on nicely apparently.
But it took a lot of time to get to that point, and you know, I had to cut back half of a peach tree, and in order to, in fact, I was taking it down because I was going to kill it. I was just going to cut the whole thing down because it had never produced. Well, after I completely massacred it and took half of the tree off, this last year it was full of peaches. So unless you experiment, you know.
Which is good. That was an expensive tree.
a $50 tree 6 years ago. My
Right.
goodness.
I'm gonna hold on to that forever. I still haven't got $50 worth of peaches off of it, is all I'm saying. Let's see. Northern Root says, willing my green babies to sprout and grow. If they fail, so happy we have an organic farm up the road I know well. So nice to be back in the town I grew up in.
Well, that is nice. Even if you can't grow all of your food or some of your food, or it's just a hobby type of a thing, having local growers is so nice. And generally, you'll find a farmer's market or something like that in the area if you look long enough. Okay, hang all your stuff up, please. Okay? Yes, Mom?
What's the intense look?
You have had plenty of what you think you need more
Way.
of.
I just made you for this someone.
Okay, hang all your stuff up, please. And then take off your shoes.
Anybody? All I see is
I don't know.
crickets. That awkward silence where the kids come in.
Still be interrupted as soon as mom starts talking.
Did we?
Did you lose connection?
No. I guess I'll go look at my YouTube feed, see what else is on.
That's what you just said?
No, that's what I'll do.
Oh my gosh,
Something
my
like
husband is
everybody
so supportive. Okay,
He
I'm
is.
going to close down the show now
What?
because I've got kids to go get in the shower. So I will be putting up a video in the next couple days of when we sheared the Angora rabbit. And we will keep you guys posted on this other house. Any other advice we need from you guys? Oh, the other thing is, have you guys heard of horsehair worms? That's what was in the video from yesterday of the really creepy looking worm that totally, I don't act like a girl very often, but that worm made me want to act like a girl.
Flipped out.
And all my research says that they are only parasites for crickets, grasshoppers, centipedes, they're for bugs, that they do not affect any kind of livestock and they do not affect humans, but they're super creepy. So if you guys know anything about those, I would appreciate
Or any other
information.
good beneficial bugs that are of great help for places. Not the horror.
Anyway, if you know anything about it other than what I just said, which is that it keeps bugs down, populations down, I would love to have that information so that I can sleep at night again instead of having nightmares about tornadoes and nasty creatures.
Like
Because
pygmy rattlesnakes.
even after she found out about how these things are super beneficial, she still said they were horrible.
Totally skeeved out by him.
and
church today.
pygmy rattlesnakes.
Yeah, we got all sorts of people here in Oklahoma telling us scary things. No, you're not. You're not. You're going to wait till the show's over and you're going to be totally
No, I wanna
respectful. And
say
if not, you will be in trouble. All right. We will talk to you later.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, and we have an Etsy store if you're interested in